Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is going to be another in my series of practicing some of the RHCSA objectives. As always, these aren't necessarily intended to be authoritative information about the RHCSA, but rather it's me kind of explaining some concepts as a self-test to see if I'm ready for the objectives, and then for you maybe I might show a different way of thinking about things or some troubleshooting methods and such that you might find useful with your own study for that. Speaking of RHCSA, my exam is scheduled for June 26th, I believe. So I have just under 2 months to make my final preparations. I'm really looking forward to it. So in this video, I'm going to go over the objective in the understand and use essential tools part, archive, compress, unpack, and uncompress files using tar, star, gzip, and bzip2. So of these utilities, star is what I've used the least. So this will be kind of a good test for me to see what I can remember how to use it. So I have my CentOS VM here. And let me get rid of displays. I was messing with resolutions and such for this. So I'm going to start with tar. Actually, no, I'll start with gzip. So gzip is a compression utility, and it's really is just that. It's going to take files and try to turn them into something that is of a smaller size. And I don't understand the full scope of how the application works, but I believe it's using like deduplication to find ways of using pointers to represent bits and such, so you have a little bit smaller file. Case in point, I'm actually going to, let's see if I can get into var log. Can I? Excellent. Can I cat one of these without being... No, I can't. Okay, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sudo cat messages. We're going to redirect that to there. All right. We got messages.log and good, it's owned by me. So if I were to do tail on messages.log, we have a bunch of, before I go on, let me make this text a little bit larger for you. Space. Change it to 13. Go back into terminal here. Maybe that'll be better. Okay, so messages.log is just a copy of what was in the messages file. And if I were to do ls-l, give us a long listing, we see that it is 632,000 bytes large. I think I can do -h to give a little more human readable format. So yeah, 618 kilobytes. So gzip is very simple to use. If you simply put gzip in the file name, it's going to try to compress that. So if I were to do gzip messages.log, all right, no output, means that nothing broke necessarily. If I were to do ls-l again, we see that this now has a .gz appended to it, and we see that the file is significantly smaller. If I were to do ls-lh, we now see it went from 618 kilobytes to 89 kilobytes, because it's just text, and it's pretty easy to compress text. Now, one note on the .gz, you don't actually have to have .gz for it to be a gzip file. Case in point, if I were to do file messages.log.gz, it's going to say this is a gzip compress data. And then if I were to, let's make a copy of this, we're just going to call it messages.log. So we now have messages.log and messages.log.gz. If I were to do file on messages.log, it's the exact same thing. We typically will have .gz more of it like a human readable thing. Just, oh, we know this is gzip, but technically you don't have to have it. In my opinion, I think it's a good thing, just from a human readable perspective. If you're doing your administrative duties and such, and you see that .gz, you have an idea. Hey, that's probably a zipped file. So that would be, let's see, going back to the objectives that we have compressed using gzip, and we want to uncompress with gzip. Well, there's two ways of doing it. The way that I will do this most often, and I'm actually going to remove our messages.log, is using a utility called gunzip or gunzip. Messages.log.gz, and we now have the original messages.log. All it did was remove the compression. If I were to do LH, we see it's back to 618 K in size. Another way is using the gzip utility itself, and I want to think it's -u, but let's check the man page real quick. See if we're right here. Maybe. I usually don't use gzip for that. I usually use gunzip. So let me look at this once more. See if we can get the D for decompress. I was thinking U for unzip. So if I were to gzip this again, messages.log, and then I can use gzip-d messages.log.gz, and we now are back to the messages.log. Or you can use gunzip as well, or gunzip if you want to think of it that way. Another common compression that's used is the bzip2 compression, and it works really in the same way as gzip. It's just a different compression algorithm, and there are some things that bzip2 will compress better than gzip and vice versa. So now bzip2, actually the name of the utility is actually going to be bzip2. Let me see if I have it installed. I believe, yeah, so it's already installed. So again, going back to messages.log, let me clear my screen, and let's do this. We're going to, let's make a copy of messages.log. We're going to add 4gzip, if I can spell. Call it messages 4gzip.log. Of course, I can't do that. That file doesn't yet exist. So messages 4gzip.log. All right, so now we have two, and they're both the same size. Now let's make another copy of messages.log. We'll make this message for bzip2.log. All right, so I'm going to gzip our message for gzip.log example. And now for bzip2, it's literally the same command, bzip2, and then we're going to do message for bzip. So I misspelled that. All right, and let's look at ls-lh, and we see that bzip2, or the bzip utility, did a little bit better job at doing the compression. You can see that they're 89K for the gzip and then 53 for bzip2. To unzip bzip, I believe -d is bzip's decompression as well as gzip, but we can check real quick. Bzip2 man, I'm going to search for -d, and yeah, so decompress. There also is a bunzip or bunzip utility. Actually, bunzip2, I had to tab complete there. I tend to use gzip more than bzip2 simply because it's just habit. I don't particularly like one more than the other, but I see here for this text file, bzip2 does a little bit better job with that. So if I wanted to decompress or unzip the bzip2 file, I can do bzip2-d, And that gives us back our original file. Let me zip it up again. And then we'll do bunzip to message. And we have our file again. So that's using from the objective both gzip and bzip2 for doing compressing files and uncompressing files. One thing to note is that this is working on a single file. So let me make a directory here. Let's call it logs, and we're going to copy everything ending in log to that directory. All right, so we have our logs directory, and if I were to do ls on logs, we see we have our two log files in there. If I were to try to gzip logs, it's going to complain because it's a directory. And if I were to do the same thing, bzip2 on logs, that's also going to complain. So these are for individual file compression. To be able to do folders and such, this gets into the tar and star utility. Tar stands for tape archive, and I believe its original use was basically making files that were archives of all sorts of other things and then copying that over to tape for tape backups and such. But for this example, what we're going to do is make an archive file. We're making a file that within that file contains all sorts of other files within it. And case in point, we'll do that with the logs folder. Now, one thing about tar, I know tar is installed here on Fedora Server Minimal, or at least this was true for Fedora 31 Server Minimal. Fedora 32, I haven't made a Fedora 32 server yet, but I noticed that if you use the like net install minimal installation, tar is not there by default. I was in there one time trying to do make an archive, and I'm like, what do you mean tar is not here? But it is in CentOS, and I imagine it's installed by default for RHEL as well. So tar has some interesting syntax. Let's go to the man page real quick. And there's all sorts of stuff that you're able to do here. But the thing to remember about tar is the order for some of the options matter. And case in point, so we want to make a an archive of logs. So we're going to do tar. We're going to do -c for create. I like you doing -v just to where you get output of what's being created, and F for file. And then immediately after file, we need the actual file name that we're going to make. We're going to call this logs.tar. Now, just like with the .gz with bzip, I mean gzip, and the .bz2 with bzip, you don't technically have to have .tar. Linux is going to know what file type it is, but for making stuff human readable, it's a good idea to do that. Then we're going to tell it what to put into the archive, and we see the output here: logs, log messages, for forg, forg bzip2.log, and then log messages.log. So if I were to take a look at our tar archive, ls-l tar, oh, ls-l tar, wow, there is our archive, logs.tar. Now, the objective says archive, compress, unpack, and uncompress. So to unpack and archive with tar, we will now use tar.x for extract, and then F for the file. Actually, let's do this. Let me remove logs, just kind of do RF for logs. So logs are now gone. Let's say we need to restore from our backup. We have a backup log start tar. So tar-x for extract, F for file, logs.tar. Oh, and I like using V again, just because I like seeing the output. And we now have our logs. Notice logs.tar did not go away, whereas gzip and bzip2 is manipulating the file you have specified. For tar, it's like, hey, I have my own file that I'm working with. Oh, you want to extract from this file? Great, I'll extract what's there, but I'm not going to get rid of the file for you because you're not literally telling me to do that. And then if I were to ls logs, we have our items there. Now you can take this this logs.tar and you can compress it if you want. If we wanted to, we could do gzip logs.tar. That'll give us logs.tar.gz. And then gunzip that. And we're back to logs.tar. Now, just to be efficient, tar includes flags for being able to do compression at the same time of archiving. So to do that, I'm going to remove our logs.tar. If we wanted to do this with gzip compression, let me clear my screen here. We would again do tar. We're going to create. We're going to pass it the Z flag, and Z tells it to use gzip compression on whatever you're creating. V for verbose, I like seeing that. F, let's do logs. Now, you can either do logs.tar.gz, or sometimes you'll see TGZ, stands for tar gzip. And then we'll do logs again. And ls-l. There we have logs.tgz. Now, do a little size comparison here. Let's do tar, just logs.tar. And here we have just logs.tar is 1.3 megabytes, and then logs.tgz is 1.78 kilobytes. So you see that we have the compression. Now I'm just curious, if I were to let's see, I'm going to, well, that'll just add a gz, so that can exist. Let's say I were to gzip the logs.tar. Okay, so that ended up being the same size. I figured it probably would. So we'll just remove logs.tar.gz. So now the question becomes, all right, so how do we, can we use tar to both unzip and decompress? Would that be right? Unzip or decompress and extract? The answer to that is yes. So what we will do, well, it will just override it, which is one of the reasons why we'll do star in just a minute. But let's remove logs, rf logs. All right, so if I wanted to decompress and extract using tar for a tar file that's gzipped, I have tar -x for extract, z because we're going to run it through gzip, v because I like v, f logs.tgz, and we now have our logs folder back, and our logs folder has the files in it that we want. One thing to be careful about with using tar, let's see, let me remove our tar archive there, and we're going to create a new one. We're going to we'll zip it as well. So zcvf. The f, well, I talked about the position of your parameters. The f needs to be at the end because it's going to be expecting a file name after it. Before the f, I don't think it matters that much. So call it logs.tgz again and logs folder. All right, so we have our archive. Now I'm going to add a file into logs. So let me go into logs, touch, test file.text. Actually, we'll do it this way, echo. Here's some text. into test file.txt. So if I were to ls here, we have 3 files. Now, if I were to extract the logs.tgz right now, let's see what happens. So tar zcvf. No, we need xzvf. We don't need to create an archive, we need to extract an existing one. All right, so it extracted it. And notice how we don't have anything different with logs. And all 3 of our files are there. I was expecting that to completely overwrite the stuff. Maybe it just overwrites individual files. So we can put that to the test. Another one of the reasons why I'm doing these videos, kind of a test for me to see if I have a correct understanding about something. So let me cat test file.txt. All right, so here's some text. Now let's try this again. We're going to remove our tar archive. Let's make a new one. zcvf. All right, we've done that. Now let us vi logs test. And let's add another. I could have done this with echo, but that's fine. Here's a second line. Let's see why it's complaining. All right, there we go. So now let's unzip, or let's decompress and extract our archive. xvcf. Okay, and now let's cat logs. All right, that's what I was expecting. Notice how that was completely overwritten. What I was expecting it to do was to, or what I initially expected it to do was to like overwrite the folder itself, but it did not do that. All it cared about was the actual files. And so if you have a file within that folder that already exists and you extract your tar archive, tar is not going to give you any kind of warning. It's just going to literally take what you say, hey, replace, extract this, and it's going to replace whatever is there. Bzip2 works similarly. Let's see. So what we'll do for bzip tar, instead of the Z flag, we're going to use J. So we're going to create verbose J for bzip2. I don't know why it's J, but it is. F, I can't remember the short version of that, so we're just going to make logs.tar.bzip2. And if I were to maybe it should be bzp. Let's see. Well, first of all, we can do file just to see what we get there. Like I said, I don't use bzip that often, so I'm not as familiar. So bzip2 compressed data, yep. Yeah, gzip compressed data. So it's right. It's just the UI is not picking up the fact that it is. Now I'm curious. So let me see if I can find it real quick in the man pages. No, I want to do man tar. I'm going to search bzip. Yep, run archive filter through bzip2. That's what we expected. See if there's anything. Let's look at bzip2. See if it gives any hint about bzt. I'll bet that, or bz2. I'll bet that. Yep, tbz2. That's what it is expecting. So let me get rid of this. And let's do Use the up arrow just to make that a little bit easier. There it is. Now it's in red. And we see that it compressed that a bit better, which we saw before. The bzip compression for these log files was better than gzip. And then to extract, it's the same idea. J, then xvf logs.tar.bz2, and that will extract your files. Also, overriding any files that might already exist that's being extracted on top of. So the last utility it talks about is the star utility, and that's not one that I use often. I probably should use it more. It's a little bit safer to use than tar, but I don't think. Let's see if it's installed. Yeah, so I know one of the parts of the exam you have to be able to show how to install stuff. So let's install sudo yum install star real quick. All right, so now we have star. Star works very similar to tar. Man star. I realized there was a U star. That's kind of cool. And a lot of the flags are going to be the same. We have the create. There should be a flag for, there's our extract. There should be a flag that we have BZ, also J, looks like there's a -Z as well. So if I wanted to use star, let's get rid of everything that is, well, get rid of that, that. I can't type, trying to go too fast. All right, so if I were to use star on logs, again, C, V, and I believe you can just use -F. Let's see. We'll do this logs.tar. And actually, let's go ahead and add compression. So Z, CVF, logs, TGZ, logs. Bad option. I think I know what's up. I believe you have to do F equals logs. Let's see. Yep. There is. We have logs.tgz. Now, if I were to do file, logs.tgz, good old gzip compressed file. Now, here's one thing that's cool about star. And of course, famous last words, this should work. Again, I don't use star that often. I use tar more than I use star. Let's go into logs. Actually, we'll vi logs.test, or that test file. And let's add our second line of text again. So here's the second line. All right, and now if I were to decompress this or extract and decompress and extract. So star Z or XZC F equals logs.tgz. Too many commands. Guess I don't need Z. Oh, I don't need C, that's why. Add the V there. Now, notice what it did. said that all we have stuff that's newer, right? So it warned you that, hey, these files are now newer. Um, we're not going to decompress it. And so, case in point, if I were to cat logs test, we have our second line there. So star, for the big use of it that I see, is that it's going to give you a bit of a warning for trying to extract files that are already there. Now, there's probably far greater utility for star, but I think for what the RHCSA is wanting you to understand is one of the use cases for using star versus tar is going to be the fact that star is going to give you um, a warning about overwriting. You can also do the J flag as well for star to pass it through the bzip2 filter. The one other thing that I did want to show, and see, we still have our logs.tgz. If you ever wanted to, and I think this is part of the objective. Let me double check real quick. Archive, compress, unpack. No, it's not officially part of the objective, but I figured I'd show it to you. Is if you want to list the contents of an archive. So if I were to do tar, T is what we want, but since this is zipped, ZTF for file, logs.tgz, that will tell us what's in the tar file, but not actually um, extract it and overwrite your stuff. And I think that also works with star. Let's just see. ZTF. F. Yep, and then star also gives you a little bit more information as well. So again, these videos are more for me to practice, and I figured I'd put them on YouTube to show the world. Here's one method of practicing for the RHCSA. I hope that you found it useful if you yourself are practicing. If you watch this and find that I've made a mistake either in thinking or something I've said wrong, feel free to chime in with the comments. A, it'll help me because I'll get better information to be better prepared for the exam, and B, it'll help the viewers so that way if there is an error, it can be corrected. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you the next time.